It's still really cool to see something that you're part of, to see it up big, because this is pretty big. It's just beautiful, and we have a version that does light up and flicker and function as a piece of neon. Hi, I'm Gail Anderson, and I'm an art director. Art directors are graphic designers, and some aren't. I'm a graphic designer and love graphic design. An art director for theatrical advertising is responsible for the overall visual identity of the show. Your first impression when you open the paper or look online, what's going to get you to make that purchase? That starts in my department. SpotCo probably works a little differently to other advertising agencies. After my department works on the launch of the show, it then moves out of our little world into the world of the other art director, whose team is then responsible for maintaining the show for the life of the run. I wanted to become a commercial artist when I was a kid. I started to get Spec and 16 magazines and started to make little Partridge Family magazines and little Jackson 5 magazines. And I wondered how you got a job doing that. I graduated from the School of Visual Arts in 1984, and I moved up to Boston to work at the Boston Globe Sunday magazine, and about 2 years later moved back to New York to work at Rolling Stone, and was there for almost 15 years. The spreads that we worked on at Rolling Stone actually felt like posters because the real estate that we were working with had very little text. It felt like the transition from Rolling Stone to SpotCo seemed sort of natural. I worked on this 2-week cycle for 14 and a half years. I started a magazine, I closed a magazine. I started a magazine, I closed a magazine. And this is always changing. A producer comes to us with a new show. The first thing I want to know is how long do we have to work on this? Sometimes we have a couple of days, sometimes we have a couple of weeks. Most of the time we're in about the 3-week to a month range to do an initial round of comps. The designers will work on what is then whittled down to anywhere from 6 to 10 comps that we then show on our wall one at a time. To get to that, you're doing maybe 20. We narrow down in internal meetings. We do an edit of what people's gut reaction is, and that can be a little tough sometimes because you start to fall in love a little, and to hear someone give you that honest opinion can kind of sting. And what's wonderful about the people I work with, they can sort of do it without ego. What's also different about this is that you go into it, each new project, with maybe less information than I'm guessing you go into other projects with. It's all being made of whole cloth, so there isn't really a thing yet. Sometimes isn't even a script yet. It's sort of neat each time to really start from scratch, and fun to do the research. In designing a piece, it's important to not try to do too much storytelling. Something that comes up here pretty consistently is that what we're trying to provide is sort of an emotional promise rather than here's what's going to happen. And it's more here's what this might feel like, and here's a sense of the show. So you're not sort of framing a scene or a moment. We worked on Hair during the 2008 election, and Hair was about hope and optimism, and it was really important to make that piece feel timely and not just a blast from the past. We explored a few directions for Lacage. That was an interesting project for me because I guess I've been around here long enough that it's my second time around on a couple of shows, and this was one of them. So it was interesting to attack something again, but a new take on a show, and to get to to come at it from another angle. And so we were going at it this sort of sexier way instead, and ended up with this sort of big, confident artwork.
At la Cage aux Folles.
Sometimes the temptation is to sort of make the cool thing that you sort of want to hang on your wall, but it's a little bigger than that. This cool thing back here has to spin off and live in all these other worlds that can live on a billboard, on the side of a bus, in the paper, online, on TV, lives in all sorts of shapes and dimensions, and doesn't just function as a poster, although in your heart, sort of that's the thing that you still love as a graphic designer. This seems like this tiny little industry. I feel like I've been fortunate enough to sort of wedge myself into these last 8 or 9 years. And here, every now and then, I take it for granted too. But then you have those moments where you're just going through Times Square and seeing all these marquees, and I think, I can't believe I do this for a living. This is incredible. So, you know, this is pretty cool, I have to admit. I've been pretty lucky, so.